newer things, and being active to try to learn those new things. I think when you stop trying to learn those new things for your relationship, that's when toxicity will set in, when you get stagnant in it. And I think that's in friendships and in relationships.
Sure.
But definitely in my relationship, I think it's just been, I reflected a lot when I was single on how was I toxic in those, situations, whether it be just a one night hookup or a whole ass relationship. I had a lot of time to sit there with myself. I overthink a lot of shit. So I just sat there and reflected on what the hell was I doing wrong? Because I felt like I was, common denominator type shit.
Yeah.
So, and then now in my new relationship, obviously I still look at those things first. I think when I come out of any sort of maybe like argument or disagreement, first thing I look at is like, what was I not seeing? What am I, not grasping right now? And I think it's just a learning patience in for me personally has alleviated some of the toxicity, learning the like patience to just take a deep breath, take a step back, and like come back to it.
So aggression. Yeah, I feel like that's what's coming off, because I do know that one big one, and I think my dad says it from time to time, is, were you reacting or were you responding? And a lot of times, and even I do it, it's not just men, but I do notice that my brothers, something that they carry, because they're the ones closest men in my life, is that a lot of times they react rather than respond. Respond would be like, me verbally responding to Anita, and I will verbally say, you know what you just said just upset me, XYZ. Can you, when you do this, it makes me feel like blah, blah, blah. Whereas reacting would be like, you know what, you do this all the time, and I just don't understand why you always do this when I do this, and it's just, not only is it the tone of your voice, where you're coming from, you feel it in your, because I know growing up, I was a hothead myself. And it wasn't that I would say I was aggressive. So I know not to put all the blame to my brothers, but one thing that they have carried from me and from probably other young men in their life, or just not having a man, like a father figure in their life, is the aggression. So they will get hot-headed very quickly, and it's like, dude, I'm just talking to you. I do that with my kids at work. We're just having a conversation. We can have a dispute or a discussion and have a disagreement, but let's talk in this tone. Don't get all hot-headed and go up here when I'm just coming at you. Let's be civil, right? Whereas a lot of men, either they're immature or just don't have the knowledge of how to approach someone, and how Nigel was saying, regardless of the relationship, whether it's your partner, your significant other, or a friend, like, men who have even female friends, or their parent or whomever, really. And it's just the way you talk to somebody. I feel like that's one thing that you can notice, like, wow, I'm a bit aggressive, and that comes from, same thing, switch the roles, from my mother, because for me, what I carried was, and I know this isn't about toxic femininity, if you want to call it that, but one thing that I did carry was passive aggressiveness, which I have and still am learning. I'm a little bit more, I try and be more straight up, not blunt, but I do try and be more straightforward as to like, what you did just upset me, or when I am up, because I tend to like shut down or give the cold shoulder, or sometimes hang up on someone. So what I tend to do, or what I used to do, would be passive aggressive. And then I learned through other relationships, like he was saying, for me, the common denominator was me. And it was like, men are not gonna, they can't play these guessing games. We hate it on both sides, right? I'm not gonna, let's guess what Mireya's feeling today. And so I did have to learn to not only mature and grow up, because it was very a high school phase, but you learn that, like, coming from my mom giving the cold shoulder, just not talking to me for like the whole day, you're like, what the fuck did I do? And then finally does talk to you the next morning, and nothing is resolved. You just like move on from it. It's not a healthy way to have a conversation or set boundaries with a loved one. Man, that was long. That was my long.
No, that's good. That's good. Did you want to say something?
Just to like aggression, and sorry, I'll try and keep it short because I want you to get into what you were gonna say. But like,
No, it's all good.
so aggression in particular, I think between men and women, levels of aggression are different. So what may seem like aggression to a woman might just be, how a man is expressing himself. And obviously it is aggressive. But in his mind, he's just seeing it as, no, this is just how I talk. This is how, and it's due to like the other men in his life that he's seen talk over people like that in those cases. But I think there's also men who don't talk over people, who do talk with more like of a sternness in their voice during certain situations, and where it's just like, no, this is me, like it's a sign of like their tone saying I'm standing my ground right here,
or I'm flustered,
and it's in a sense of like sometimes it's still taken as like aggression, and it's like, no, I'm just being blunt, I'm being on, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that, because I think a lot of men, when she said aggression, I thought like physically. And I was like,
no.
like
No.
I
meant like the voice gets very heavy, it gets stern, it gets louder. They kind of sometimes they'll like slam a paper onto the table and be like, you know what I said, and it's gonna be this way. And you're like, what? Like when my dad does it, I don't cry because I'm like, and just getting the bad, like that, those eyes of disappointment from your dad versus your mom, it hits different. But continue what you were saying. Aggressive.
I was kind of done. That was pretty much it. Just like it's seen as a little different in men and towards women, because, and I think it's like internally on both sides, whereas like women are seen to be more delicate, and like with men towards each other, we're more rough, obviously. Whether it be in words or physically, it doesn't matter. We're, if it's your friends, you're typically okay with it. And so like when you're in your relationships with your female friends, women friends, or your actual relationship, your partner, and you take that aggression that you have with your homies, that you have with your other friends, and you apply that to those relationships, it is somewhat like jarring for women. And in a lot of cases, it's uncomfortable, and understandably so. And sometimes I think like I had a friend who was hanging around our group, and she like was kind of new to us, and she was just kicking it. And so she noticed that like I rag on her more in the group of guys rather than when we're just kicking it, like just us. And I was like, well, yeah, like I'm trying to make sure you feel like one of the guys, where it's like, I don't want you to feel like I'm a joke on everybody here. Look at you, skip right over to the next person, and it's like, if equality, and this is a stupid example of it, it's just like, I'm gonna be equal to you, where it's like, you're one of my friends. I treat my friends equally, although I realize sometimes I have to tone down my aggression for the person, not even just towards a woman, just because men also can be, sensitive in those ways. It's like, you don't know what they might have going on in that situation that day. It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I will say that I was in that person's like in their not situation, but I was that person where I was too sensitive. I've always had thin skin. Like you tell me something, I feel it deep. I am like a sponge. I absorb everything. I try and not take things personal, especially now as I've gotten older. I don't anymore, but being young, I felt, especially like when I was like 19, Nathan, the person that was on the previous episode, mentor, teacher, but more like an older brother figure at this point, just because I've known him for so long and he's, really come through for me. But I remember when I first met him, he would bag on me all the time and just pick at me and make fun of me. And I would take it personal, and it was part insecurity, because he would, pick at things like physically, but also, and then I found out when Nathan doesn't pick on you, especially as a teacher or as a friend, it's because he doesn't fuck with you, right? He's that person growing up, especially where he's from. That was the thing to do, is you just pick on each other, and you have to give it back twice as hard. Otherwise, you're just gonna end up crying in the corner. And unfortunately, if you're a sensitive kid, you probably won't make it. Like my ass probably wouldn't have.
I just wanted to add, because as we were talking about this, I was also like thinking about how, in what ways, as you brought up, like what ways am I a toxic woman or spewing toxic femininity? I don't know, is that how you say it? Or what are the things that I also carry that could be like toxic masculinity? Because I can portray that in various ways. But I have to be honest with myself, and I'm reflecting and I'm trying my best to work with what I think in my brain, right? But I also think like sometimes when a dude is probably like my height or like a shorter than me, I'm like, oh,
Bummer. Yeah.
yeah, bummer. Because I had a dude who was my height. And I had no problem with him. Well, I did have a problem. Anyways, that's a complete different issue. But we were together for like around 2 years. But I always not when I first saw him, I was like, oh, he's short. But then, the relationship still happened. We were still together for 2 years. But then I start to reflect, right? Like, what is it? Why do I want a tall dude? Why do I see that? Why does he have to be at least an inch taller than me? And then I start to reflect, and it's like, I equate tallness to protection. Do I want a boyfriend? Do I want a partner? Do I want a bodyguard? Like, what do I want?
Exactly.
So that's something that I've been trying to work with myself as when I'm like, reflecting on men and stuff like that, especially since my cousin, had an incident. He does have body dysmorphia, and he mentions his height a lot. And that breaks me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be one of those girls, like
I think you brought that up in a previous episode.
Yeah, he does. He has body dysmorphia, and that hurts, to see your cousin be affected by that, and to go to the extent of like, he would really consider getting surgery to lengthen his legs,
That's a thing.
That affects
leg
dudes. Yes.
surgery.
Length.
They break your femurs in 3 different places.
Oh,
yep.
And when they heal up, they will grow back with 3 inches at least,
Yeah.
at your height. So it's the man version of a BBO. And definitely I was like, hey, me coming back 6'2", 6'3", shit, 9 months of treatment, that don't sound too bad.
Yeah, and
too bad. 9 months in a wheelchair I could do that.
It's a long time, yeah.
Anyways.
But see, like that's I don't want to be like that, and I don't want to equate that to protection, like like it. And that's something that I have to work with, right? And also like with just being around my brother and taking care of him too. And I'm not saying that I'm completely the only one raising him, right? But, I catch on to certain things. Maybe not what I say, but what other people tell him. Or like, oh, you're a boy. Yeah, you should be playing with balls. You shouldn't be playing with dolls. And I'm like, let him be. Inside I'm raging, and I'm like, okay, like we gotta go. But it's just like, to me it's like he can play with whatever. Like the other day I wanted to put a ponytail on him, but I don't know, I just wanted to see, and my mom was like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, it doesn't mean he's a girl, like, can I just do this? But I just wanted to see his little face, cute little face with the little bow. But yeah, and it's stuff like that.
I want to add to that as far as women holding ourselves accountable and also doing our part.
Yeah, it's hard, but
unraveling or at least dismantling toxic masculinity. When we, expect men to do homework, we have homework ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, like just to add on to what you were saying, these expectations of men, I think when I was like 19 or 20, and I'm almost 24 now, so I'm evolving, but when I was like 19 or 20, I remember dating a guy, and he cried, and it was like, I want to say like the first or third date or so. No situation, and I got so mad because
you got the ick.
I was like, yeah, I got the ick, and I was like, why the fuck are you crying right now? I was like, this thing is so small. I didn't say it like that. Of course, I looked at him and gave him the look like, dog, are you serious right now? And then just kind of, we didn't work out, and so we cut ties. But I remember looking back now, I'm like, why was my reaction disgust, or just like, dude, really? Or like, why are you crying right now? Like,
yeah.
but I do, in all fairness, I do want to say I barely knew the person. It was like the second